Thank you all so much for being here today. I cannot describe how I feel right now because it's overwhelming. As Pastor Beth said, this has been a very long process to get here, just to get here, but there is so much more to come. There are performances already scheduled out for almost 2 years. And there's already interest in another church here in town doing it in a year and a half or so. So we're excited, very excited, and we are excited that you are here. The reason we did this was for you, for all of us. The pandemic was difficult. It was hard on many people. And we knew a couple years ago that we would need something, some way to heal. Not just as a church or a congregation, but as a community and as a world. And this work, the Requiem, is our way for this congregation to shine its light in a world that so desperately needs it. So we are so glad you're here today. The choir has been rehearsing since January. They've been putting up with all of my tirades and tantrums. Yes, you may laugh and nod your head. It's okay. But I was not about to let this moment slip by. It was too important. Not just for me and not just for BJ's memory, but for all of us. Because we're all here for the same reason, to heal. So I'm going to shut up because the person you really want to hear from is Heather Sorenson.
Good afternoon. I am so honored to be here and part of this premiere, this world premiere. And I told the choir and the orchestra yesterday that this work, this Requiem, is the culmination of many prayers, many dreams. It's the culmination of so many personal stories and God moments, and it's all wrapped up in one 35-minute work that we're about to hear. And today, I think, is proof that joy and sorrow can coexist, and that peace and pain often sit right next to each other. In contrast to most requiems, my Requiem, the Sorenson Requiem, which feels very weird and wonderful to say, but in contrast to other requiems, my Requiem is not a mass for the dead, but rather it's a work intended to bring healing and comfort for those of us who remain and for anyone who has experienced any kind of loss, which really is all of us. Something that I really appreciated about this process is that from the very beginning, the church gave me great creative freedom in the writing of this work. In fact, Michael told me at the very beginning, he said, feel free to do whatever you want right from your heart. It can be a bluegrass requiem if you want, and we'll bring in banjos. And that sounds like a whole lot of fun. That's really not in my wheelhouse, though. I did borrow from the original Requiem Mass with some phrases, you'll hear those, but I just used that as a springboard then to jump into my own creativity. Scripture tells us that because of the resurrection, we do not need to grieve as those who have no hope. We grieve, but not with the same hopelessness as those who do not believe in the resurrection. And so in this work that you're about to hear, you will hear the normal mourning and angst and agitation and sorrow that you would hear in any requiem, but I've also put in quite a few moments of peace and joy because of that hope that we have in the resurrection. So especially in the Sanctus movement, you'll hear this exploding joy. It's common for an orchestra to play a supportive accompaniment role in a work like this. They usually support the choir, but my work is a little bit different in the fact that I was intentional about making the orchestra basically partnering with the choir. By design, I created them to have a more prominent role in this work. They share the spotlight, they're co-stars, and so as you're listening, be watching for those moments where you've got instrumental features, whether it's by section or by solo. And they play it beautifully, by the way. I was just overcome yesterday with both the singing and the playing. And there's so much more that I could share about the writing of this work. There were so many divine, inspirational moments that I knew God was just dropping things in my lap. There were little stories that shaped each movement. They would take a long time to go into. And so I'm just going to leave with two things here, and then we will hear the world premiere of this work. The first thing that I want to say is a deeply heartfelt thank you to the church and to Michael especially for spearheading this project. A deep thank you for trusting me with this commission. I understood the weight and the responsibility that they were handing to me, and I'm deeply honored. And then the second thing is that I'm going to ask you as the audience to listen with open hearts. It was never my design and never my desire for the choir and orchestra to perform at you. It was my design and desire to pull the audience in to become part of the work. Sometimes pain and grief and sorrow causes us to cover our wounds, but today is a day of healing. And so I will ask you to allow God to pour comfort and mercy on the parts of us that never healed.
The Requiem is inspired by a hymn, an old Baptist hymn called Like a River Glorious, and we are all going to sing that together. So you will find that in your program because you will hear parts of this hymn appear throughout the Requiem. So we wanted you to have the most attuned ear that you could have to hear the richness and the beauty of all of this. So we are all going to sing together the three verses of Like a River Glorious, and then we will begin the Requiem.